The return of the sausages. The return of the sausages. The return of the sausages. The return of the sausages.
Warning. This podcast is not vegetarian or vegan friendly.
Snorkers. Good-o.
Prick with a fork. 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 Prick with a fork.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Prick with a Fork. It's a very radical podcast, this. It's the only podcast of its kind in the world that regularly talks about sausages. There are some foodie podcasts knocking around, and occasionally they might mention a sausage or two, but not us. Every time we have an episode, it's always talking about the great British banger, sometimes bangers from other countries, and just our general love for snorkers. I'm your host, Duncan. As always, it's much appreciated. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this particular episode. Just a reminder, you find us on Apple Podcasts, you find us on Spotify, and we're also on YouTube as well now. So if you want to make sure you never miss an episode on YouTube, what you need to do is subscribe to our channel. No money changes hands, it won't cost you anything, but if you have a YouTube account, just hit the subscribe button, and that way, when the new episode is released, you'll automatically get notified. And that's the same on the podcast platforms of Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you follow us on either of those, then when I upload a new episode, you'll get a notification as well. And please do it and spread the word. If you know of people who love sausages, who like foodie chat and stuff, a bit of banter, then this is a podcast for them. Prick with a Fork, the sausage podcast that has been running for a number of years. So please do spread the word. And you can always do us a favour by liking our podcast and giving it a review. Ideally 5 stars. If you give us a decent review, that means it gets recommended to other people. So if you're listening via Apple Podcasts and Spotify, please follow us and give us a decent review. And if you've got a YouTube account, then subscribe to the Prick with a Fork YouTube channel and you'll never miss an update. We're going to talk to Rory McAllister in a few moments' time. Increasingly my partner in crime. We'll get old Rozza connected because he's going to be sampling some sausages alongside me. On this particular episode, we're doing some sausages you can get from your local Sainsbury's. Their Taste the Difference range, which I'm sure you're familiar with. They're 6 Sicilian-inspired pork sausages in a traditional style. We read you some of the blurbs: succulent pork belly and shoulder, a classic mix of red wine, fresh garlic and whole fennel seeds, and finished with cracked black pepper in a traditional natural casing. So we're going to be sampling those. I've got some cold ones. Rozza's got his currently baking in the oven as we speak. So we'll both sample those snorkers shortly. I'm just trying to think of anything I've been up to. I had some bangers and mash out recently, which I'll talk about a little bit later on with Rozza, Rory McAllister. What else do I need to tell you about? I popped up on a TV channel called GB News, which increasingly is really giving people like Sky News and BBC News a run for its money. They wanted me to talk about sausage rolls, because you know Greggs, that appear to be everywhere now. There was a news story knocking around a few weeks ago that Greggs might be reducing the size of their sausage rolls, because apparently you got these people having weight loss jabs and they're not eating as much as they used to. So Greggs said, we're keeping an eye on this kind of behaviour, and we might look at portion sizes. And a few of the tabloid newspapers, I think it was The Sun, ran with this story that sausage roll sizes at Greggs might be reduced. And from time to time I pop up on GB News, as I do a lot of other places as well. You can often find me late at night on Sky News reviewing the next day's newspapers. I do it for BBC 5 Live. What else do? I do Talk TV. I'll go anywhere really, as long as they pay the invoice. But GB News, where I review the newspapers most weekends at the moment, and also do some political commentary, because that's the other thing I do as a broadcaster. One of their producers got in contact and basically said over WhatsApp, you've got that podcast all about sausages. I was like, yeah, Prick with a Fork. And they said, do you want to come on and talk about sausage roll sizes? And I thought, well, this is a bit of a cheap and dirty way of getting some publicity for the podcast. So I went on a show, the Martin Daubney show. who I've never met, and he was a nice bloke actually. We went for a beer afterwards, just round the corner in Westminster, and we spent 12 minutes talking about sausage rolls. And on my way in to the studio, because GB News have two studios, one in Westminster and one in Paddington, obviously both in London, but the political stuff and some of their programmes tend to come out of the Westminster studio. So I went in there, and on the way in, I went to a Greggs in Victoria Street. If you know London, you've got Victoria Station, so I get the train into Victoria Station. You walk down Victoria Street, and their studio is it's kind of in the basement of the Queen Elizabeth Conference Centre. And on the way down, I picked up some sausage rolls and some steak bakes and a couple of iced buns as well. So I went into the studio, and when we did the piece, which was live, because I love a bit of live telly, there was Martin and I. He was munching on a steak bake and I was munching on a sausage roll, and I was just talking about how great sausage rolls are and making the point that Greggs is a great British company, founded in Gosforth, in Newcastle upon Tyne, many decades ago. So I was flying the flag for a great British company, but also making the point that we do not want sausage rolls to get smaller at Greggs. So that's what I've been up to. I hope you've been okay. A little bit of housekeeping here. I mentioned where you can find us in terms of the podcast platforms and on YouTube. If you want to make contact, and there are various ways of doing this, you can find me, Duncan Barks, in various places on social media. So in my own right, if you like, you can find me on Instagram. On Insta, just search for The Duncan Barks. And on X, formerly Twitter, I live there as Duncan Barks, though I don't do much sausage stuff on X. It tends to be elsewhere. But if you want to just make a connection, on X, it's Duncan Barks. On Instagram, The Duncan Barks. You can find us on Facebook, and we have a Prick with a Fork Facebook page, simply called Prick Fork. So if you like your Facebook and you want to connect, just search for Prick Fork. And if you want to send something directly to me, about anything sausage related, maybe you've been somewhere, had some decent bangers, you've got a recommendation, you've been making sausages, you want to share how that went with me and indeed all of our listeners, then I have an email address which is prickfork@gmail.com. Really simple, prickfork@gmail.com. Right, I think that's all of the housekeeping. I'm just looking at my notes. Yeah, we've done the podcast stuff. I've mentioned the YouTube stuff. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're on the podcast platforms, please follow us and please give us a decent review. That'll be good. I've told you about Prick Fork on Facebook. I've told you about me on Instagram, The Duncan Barks, and me on X as Duncan Barks. And I've told you about the email address, prickfork@gmail.com. Right, that's all of that done. Let's get cracking and try and get hold of Rozza.
Prick with a fork.
Rozza, how's it going?
Well, we've got bangers, we've got snorkers.
Yeah, that's all we
I'm
need.
so in love.
I'm so in
with
love.
those porkers.
Oh, you know the lyrics. Listen, it's always good to have you on this podcast, Prick with a Fork, the world's only regular podcast all about sausages. Rory McAllister, broadcaster, fellow sausage fan. Good to have you on. How you been doing since we last spoke?
Well, I have been, pretty good. I've had a few more trips abroad.
Yeah.
The most recent being to Croatia. Now, there's an interesting place when it comes to sausages because they absolutely love their meat in Croatia.
Yeah.
They love beer and they love meat. I think when I was looking up my facts for the commentary job, I think off the top of my head, Croatia per capita, as in per sort of person and population in Europe, they're number 3 in Europe's beer consumption.
Nice.
And that's because everybody, like women, men, they all drink beer at dinner. Yes, there is wine, and Croatia has some fantastic wines actually, but the beer there was very nice as well. So immediately people start getting lovely views of Dubrovnik and Split and all those other places down the coastline that faces Italy. But I was actually up at the top because Croatia is like a really strange sort of C shape.
Right.
And I was right at the top east. So I was 50 kilometers south from the Hungarian border and about 30 kilometers, what's that? It's like 45 miles or so, 50 miles from Belgrade in Serbia. So I was right up the other side. So I was in what I feel to be like proper Croatia.
Yeah.
Osijek is the name of the city.
You sound like you like the place.
I do. Yes, because it was It's my third time there,
Yeah.
and it was a real surprise when I went there. There's nothing to do. There's no sort of museums to look at, or anything of real sort of interest, apart from the fact that it's very Croatian. There's even still signs of the war from '91. There's like tank shells.
Yeah.
In the side of buildings and stuff. But in terms of sort of architecture and they're just really nice people, and they like beer and meat.
Well, so my main takeaway so far is it's beer, it's meat, and I'm going to use deliberately provocative language. The chicks drink their beer as well, which is good, right? So it's already ticking some boxes for me. When you talk about the meat, did you manage to find any sausages?
I did, yes. Now, some of them weren't for me, and that's because I'm pretty sure I don't really like European sausages. So this podcast is going to be very interesting, and I've gone with it because you is the governor, as it were. You make the choices around here, and you said to me, Rozza, we're reviewing this. Go and buy it right now, or I might.
Well, hang on a second. I wasn't that dictatorial, but yeah. I mean, look, we made this kind of pledge to do sausages that are widely available for a bit because we went through a phase of using farm shop stuff, and some of the farm shops did mail order, but not everyone has access to it and stuff. So we kind of decided we'd do some supermarket sausages, and I spotted these in Sainsbury's, the ones we're going to sample on this podcast, and I sent you a picture saying you need to buy these. I thought I said it relatively politely, but maybe I was.
Oh no, of course.
A little bit grumpy.
In fact, you weren't even necessarily expecting me to buy them, because it was one of those see if your Sainsbury's has got them, which it did. I did have to look a little bit harder because the way they stack things in supermarkets. Yeah. In the good old days, everything just lay flat, but now everything lays facing.
Oh no, it's a nightmare.
In these plastic. So if you want the bacon at the back, which has got the longer shelf life, you can often reach into the back of that, and then all these other packs of bacon just come sort of, charging towards you, falling down inside these new freezer window door things that we've got in our new Sainsbury's. So I did manage to get them. They're in like a brown cardboard packaging with 6 Sicilian inspired. So this is Sicilian inspired, which is what I found interesting.
Yeah, interesting word, inspired, isn't it? We'll go through the ingredients and a bit more about them in a second, but I wanted to just pick your brains about some other sausage chat, because I cooked these sausages on Friday, so I'm going to try a couple of them cold. You're waiting for yours to come out the oven, courtesy of the current Mrs. Rory, so we'll wait for that delivery to turn up. But I just wanted your view on something here. What are you drinking there? Is that... What's that?
It's what you're about to have down the pub with Bertie.
Oh, proper Guinness.
No, this is a 0.
Oh, it's a 0%. I can't tell the difference apart from the fact I don't get that warm, fuzzy feeling. That is the best 0% drink on the market, I think, in terms of 0% alcohol. It's brilliant, isn't it?
It's because today is a day off. Because, like we've said, with us both being in broadcasting, and by the way, we haven't done the how are you. We need to find out how you are as well, Duncan.
Yeah.
But because of like this, of working through 2 weekends, you end up having these weird days in lieu where everybody else is at work. And so today is sort of my Saturday, and tomorrow will be my Sunday.
Nice. Yeah, I'm the same.
If that makes sense.
The weekend has just passed, so we're recording this on a Monday afternoon. I did some media work in London first thing, very early hours, Saturday morning, a radio station called Talk! ! And then I did Sky News on Sunday night very late, so my body clock's a little bit all over the place, but I like the idea that the weekend becomes Monday and possibly Tuesday, because there's not many people in the pub. Though today's St. Patrick's Day, isn't it? So it might be busy when I go out down the boozer with Bertie later for some, I like to call it vitamin G therapy, but it is St. Patrick's Day. But yeah, that's what I've been up to. But listen, I wanted to get your view on something very quickly, because I went out for dinner on Saturday night. Tell me what you think of this. So, and this is partly a recommendation. So I live in a place called Chichester in West Sussex, and we're surrounded by some relatively good country pubs. I like a country pub, right? And we went to a country pub, and I don't mind mentioning it because it's got its pros. It's called the Fox Goes Free in a place called Charlton, which is near Goodwood. And you know about Goodwood because you know about your horse racing and stuff. So you've got the horse racing at Goodwood. You've also got a little aerodrome there where people, posh people land their planes and helicopters. You've got a little motor circuit, so you get the Festival of Speed and the Revival. It's a lovely part of the world, right? And it's just nestled in by the South Downs. So the Fox Goes Free pub in Charlton is worth a visit. It's a proper country pub, lovely log fires, a lot of exposed beams and stuff. Someone has to drive. There's no transport there. There's no public transport there, so you need a car. But I wasn't driving, and that was fine. So we went there on a Saturday. And as always, Rozza, when there's bangers and mash on the menu, I've got to have them, all right? Everything else falls by the wayside. Well, why wouldn't you? Because you want to check out what they're doing. And I have had bangers and mash there in the past, but that was about 2.5 years ago. So I always look at the menu, and if I see sausages and mash, right, I don't bother with anything else because I think, well, I've got to try them out. So tell me what you think of this, all right? And this is partly a recommendation. If you ever come down to the Chichester area, do check out the Fox Goes Free because, as I say, it's a nice country-style pub, lovely outside. They've got some tables. You're surrounded by the downs. The countryside is there. There's some lovely proper ale on pump, which is always worth having in a nice foaming pint. But I ordered the pork and leek sausages, right? I've got one observation and I've got one complaint, and I want you to tell me if you think my complaint is justified. But this is the observation, all right? The pork and leek sausages, my heart soared because on the menu it said a trio of pork and leek sausages. And my benchmark is, and we might have talked about this before, if you're going out for bangers and mash, anything less than 3 on your plate is a bloody con, right? You don't go back to places like that. If you get less than 3 sausages when you order bangers and mash and they only give you 2, or in some cases 1 big one, that is an outrage, right? And they shouldn't be allowed to continue. In fact, they should be shut down. Anyway, so my heart soared because it's in a trio. And that's a nice word, isn't it? A trio of anything's good. A trio of desserts. A trio of pints. A trio of tarts. Trio is a great word. So I was quite happy with this. So a trio of sausages, I thought, yeah. And there are pork and leek sausages. I thought, that's all right. Not my favourite, but pork and leek does work as a combination. Then I saw the following description, and which I thought was a bit iffy, but this is my observation. This is not my complaint. All right? It said potato puree.
Ooh.
Yeah. Now, what puree is, that makes me nervous, that word, because you don't know, to be blunt, how much you're going to get. Puree for me always seems to be like a bit of a smear, like a toothpaste kind of deposit. Does that make sense as a puree?
Yeah,
because
like the sort of edge of an artist's palette.
Well, yeah, because normally when you think about cooking and catering, what do you associate the word puree with? Tomato puree. You buy a tube of tomato puree and use that for your
garlic.
Yeah. So you might stick that in your pasta sauce, whatever. Puree to me means little. It doesn't mean big. So I was a little bit, what are you talking about? What is a potato puree, right? So that was my observation. I thought it was unnecessary, and I don't like that word puree when it's associated with sausages. But they redeemed themselves because also on the menu it was braised red cabbage. Now that is nice. That goes well.
Now that is nice. Yes.
So already we're painting the picture. We've got the pork and leek sausages, a trio, very important. Potato puree, bit iffy. Braised red cabbage, nice, and there was a rich onion gravy, which is also good. So I took a punt on it. I ordered it. I did think about saying to the Australian waiter, "What's this puree rubbish about?" But I didn't want the conversation because I don't know if puree translates into the world of Australia. So anyway, ordered it. It turned up, and thankfully, puree was unnecessary because it was a good old lump of mash. It wasn't lumpy, it was nice, it was smooth, but it was a good old chat. So I was looking at it, and it was in a bowl, Rory, and we like bowls, don't we, when we like our bangers and mash. And I thought, this is great.
Because you need to be able to keep the gravy in a moat.
You don't want it seeping out to the sides of the plate, and you're right. So as we all know, if you're a regular listener to this podcast, you're probably aware of this. If you're a newbie, then firstly, thank you. But secondly, one of the rules of eating bangers and mash, as we just identified, is it should be in a bowl.
In a bowl.
Always in a bowl. And he said to me, I won't tell you about everyone else's dishes because they weren't that interesting. But he said, "Do you want anything else with it, sir?" And I said, right, what would I have with my bangers and mash, Rory? What would I have as a condiment?
Guinness.
Well, no, I was on my second pint of Arundel Gold.
Arundel Gold, very nice.
Yeah, I had English mustard.
Yeah, English. Yes, Coleman's, and it has to be Coleman's.
Right. So here's the thing. I said, could I have some English mustard, please? And he went, "I'll see what I can do," he said.
Oh, no.
And my heart sank a little bit. And off he went to the kitchen, and he came back, and he had this little dish, and it had something yellow in it, and there was a teaspoon, and he said, "We don't have English mustard.
Dijon.
We've only got French." Now, there are two things about this, and this is my complaint, all right? You are a country pub nestled in the bosom of the South Downs, and you don't have any bloody English mustard. That is an outrage. I mean, what is the point in existing if you don't have English mustard? I mean, Chaucer, Shakespeare would be spinning in their graves. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, I'd rather he came back and said we had no mustard, because Dijon mustard is pointless, right? French mustard is utterly pointless. There's no point in having it. It doesn't taste of anything. It looks pretty revolting. It looks like some discharge from some scar that someone's got from some recently carried out operation, right? So that really upset me. So that was my complaint. But tell me, am I wrong to expect English mustard in a countryside pub nestling in the bosom of the South Downs? It's not too much to ask, is it?
No. I'm going to call them now. You know that Arundel Goals? Yeah, keep that, but you can shove your French mustard up your ass.
I mean,
And I hope it burns.
but the thing is, it won't burn, will it? Because there's no point to French mustard.
No, exactly.
But I'm not wrong. If you have bangers and mash on your menu, right, it's only right and proper to expect the kitchen to at least have, even if it's a dusty jar of Coleman's on a shelf somewhere, at least to go,
carry.
yeah, at least be thinking, oh, it's that grisly looking fat bloke here again who likes his bangers and mash. We better roll out the slightly worn jar, even the out of date jar of English Coleman's mustard. I mean, it's not my favourite mustard, but I'd accept that as a default. And they didn't have any. They didn't have any. No English mustard.
What did you describe it again as a discharge from a hospital operation gone wrong or something?
Yeah. Well, you've seen the pictures, you've seen the documentaries. They're always late night on Freeview, one of the Freeview channels. You know, it's like it's like hospital nightmares, and then you get a picture of someone's seeping wound.
Lizzie Wood, I can't watch those programs. I can't.
And the voiceover, the voiceover will be talking about Derek, who's now got sepsis. You know. Anyway, I'm not wrong to expect mustard. English mustard, am I?
No, and I'm no. That's a very valid rant complaint. It would make a very funny TripAdvisor review.
Well, I wouldn't do that to people, because I think the hospitality sector is pretty under the cosh at the moment. But it just the
Duncan
brand,
Darkers.
yeah, the brand of the Fox Goes Free in Charlton oozes proper country pub. And if you've got sausage and mash on the menu, you should have bloody English mustard of some description in your kitchen. No debate.
In some ways, you were lucky that it wasn't the Australian waitress that you had to do.
Oh, he was a waiter.
Because, you don't. Oh, the Australian was a woman though, right?
No. Sorry, I wasn't clear. So the waiting person was a bloke, and he came from Australia. Yeah.
And he was Australian. Oh, okay, all right. So he wasn't, because that they can be blunt. Let's say. Yeah. Having lived there for a bit.
Yes, of course. Yeah. No, he was great. Service was great. No problem with the service.
Actually, foxes is what they used to tease me about. You brought foxes here, mate. As in. Okay, English ancestors. Oh, is that a knock at the door? Oh, it is. Mrs. M's here.
Marvellous. Have your hot bangers arrived?
There we are.
Oh,
they're here.
Lovely. Right.
The knife and fork.
Well, we'll get into this. So I wanted to mention that, and very quickly, Rozza. Hang on. What?
Sorry, we've got Croatian beer as well.
Oh, nice. Living your best life. I also wanted to mention, before we sample these 6 Sicilian-inspired pork sausages, I wanted to say hello to one of our regular listeners and contributors, John Herbert. Now, I think I sent you a picture of what he sent me. So John Herbert has been a loyal, long-time supporter and listener of this podcast, Prick with a Fork, over many years. And he gets in contact with me on Twitter, as we used to know it, but now he's obviously called X. You can also get in contact with me. I'm Duncan Barks on X, by the way. Facebook, we have a Facebook page called Prick Fork, and on Insta, I'm the Duncan Barks. Do you want to mention where you are whilst I find John's picture?
I'm in Worcester, in the West Midlands. Yeah. So for those of you that have heard of The Source and people like Edward Elgar, that's probably arguably it's two most famous exports, as it were. But it's about 25, 30 miles south of Birmingham, because some people sort of go, Worcester, where is that? Funnily enough, when I was back down in Berkshire, where I hail from, I was doing a hosting gig for O2, one of their corporate Christmas parties, at one of their head offices, the main one in Slough. And someone recognised me from my days of being on the Beeb and on the radio and various places, like you, Duncan. The way you sort of get about a bit, I used to and still do get about a bit. And she said, "No, Rory, where are you nowadays?" I said, "Oh, I'm in Worcester." She went, "Oh yeah, I've heard of the crisps."
Oh my God!
And I was like, "The Source came first."
Yeah.
I'm so glad.
And just
I'm so glad I left this area.
Remind listeners to this podcast where you are on social media as well as geographically. Where can they find you?
Oh, that's what you meant.
That's
isn't
all right.
it?
No, it's good context, because it's worth pointing out you're in a different part of the country. But where are you on social media?
Okay, so Instagram is my main sort of playroom, and you'll find me at Rory _McAllister. That's McAllister. 1978. I just like the number. It's not the year I was born or anything.
Excellent. No, it's a good number, that 1978. So John Herbert, regular podcast listener, got in contact on X, and he does this from time to time. I sent you a picture of this. I think I forwarded it to you on WhatsApp.
You did.
And what he does when he goes somewhere that he thinks
on X as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, Duncan. Like Bertie, sometimes my dog Sumner has just come in because she's aware that the sausages are here. Sorry, yes, my ex is at Rory _McAllister. Again, that's McAllister. But yes, John's story, let's go.
So John Herbert travels around various parts of the UK, and he sends pictures when he's had a nice sausage sandwich or a nice full English somewhere. So I just want to say hello to John, and also thank you for the picture. And this is a recommendation of the Rectory Road Farm Cafe in Warmington in Northamptonshire. And they do a nice sausage sandwich with a coffee. And it's what he's done is he's peeled back the bread to reveal there's a couple of lovely snorkers in there, cut lengthways by the looks of it. And that gets a fine recommendation from John Herbert. So if you find yourself in Northamptonshire, take a detour to the Rectory Road Farm Cafe in Warmington and get yourself a sausage sarnie. Right, let's crack on with the sampling here. So we have got the 6 Sicilian-inspired pork sausages. You've had them freshly delivered to your little studio there by Mrs. M. I've got cold ones. Do you want to go through the ingredients? You got them there?
I have indeed, yes, in front of me. Now, this is Sainsbury's Taste the Difference range.
Yep.
And you'll find these sausages in brown cardboard sleeve. And it tells us that they're 6 Sicilian-inspired pork sausages, traditional style. Succulent pork belly and shoulder with a classic mix of red wine, so you'll like this, Duncan, fresh garlic and whole fennel seeds, finished with cracked black pepper in a traditional natural casing. Now, we've got pork casings here, Duncan. Now, it's made with British pork, which I suppose is the slightly strange thing for Sicilian sausages, made using only outdoor bred British pork from RSPCA assured farms. So farms is one thing that you like to get your teeth stuck into.
Yeah.
As is red wine and traditional pork cases. This whole fennel, garlic, I'm not sure about this. My jury's out on this, but they are, is it 88% pork?
I think so,
85.
Yeah.
85%.
85%, isn't it? 85.
Yeah. The 88% are the ones I had, because they do like a garden herb one with sage and what have you, and I bought those at the same time. Now, if you've got a Nectar card, these are on for $3.50 at the moment with your Nectar card. Otherwise, from memory, I think it was £4 for 6 sausages.
And I found them, I cooked these a couple of days ago. I found them to be a good size, quite chunky, which was quite pleasing. I found when I opened up the packet, the aroma was suitably Sicilian, if you like. I could imagine myself walking down a back alley somewhere in Sicily,
Agree with that.
Yeah, so that was quite nice. The word inspired is interesting. I'm guessing that's probably they can't call them Sicilian sausages because there's probably something in there that doesn't make them proper Sicilian sausages. I don't mind. You see, I like Toulouse. So I love my garlic and my red wine. You're shaking your head
Yuck.
there. I like that. So I wasn't adverse to these, but I do have a couple of comments. We both cooked them in the oven. Have you noticed anything about them? Because I've noticed something when I cooked mine.
I mean, size-wise, they've stayed about the same. They're quite stiff. I'm just holding it up now. I'm doing the usual sausage test that you do, Duncan.
It's not limp.
Yeah, the smell is incredible. Actually,
Isn't
the
it?
smell almost smells like barbecue. And like that, they probably say inspired because already on the package it does proudly declare that it is British pork, so it can't be a whole Sicilian sausage if they're not using Italian meat.
Exactly.
I should think.
Exactly. Have you talked about does it list a combination of meat in terms of the cuts? I can't remember.
Well, it's pork belly and shoulder.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's good. So you've got the fattiness of the belly, you've got the leanness of the shoulder. I mean, that's my typical pork mix if I make anything. It's interesting. So they are quite chunky, and you're right, they maintain their shape quite well. Though I noticed, and the one you are holding up there, and I've got one here, so I've got some cold ones from a couple of days ago.
What did I notice?
I don't know if I can show you, but I'll describe it to the listener. The skin slightly bubbles. Have you got some bubbly bits on your skin there?
Let me get the light
on the
it
casing. And I don't know why that is. But a couple of them, when I cooked them and took them out. You see what I mean?
Yeah, mine maybe haven't come out as bad as yours, but I suppose these are just fresh out, whereas yours are
They've been in the fridge for 2
old.
days.
But, yeah,
You wouldn't believe the willpower it took to not actually eat them.
these
I
smell
love the way you're
incredible.
smelling that like a fine Havana cigar. They smell brilliant,
I know.
don't they?
But that's because you've said that before.
Yeah.
I think when you first started doing the podcast, there is an episode in the early days where you say, "Oh, it's like sniffing a fine, Cuban cigar." There's like the smell from these as well. It's sort of like an HP sauce, but it's not HP sauce.
No.
But it's, I mean, looking at the ingredients, there's thyme, oregano, or oregano, as the American listeners will be more familiar with, rosemary, cayenne pepper, parsley, black pepper, the fennel seeds, garlic, sugar, salt, red wine, which we know about, sea salt. So they don't just put any old salt in it; they put sea salt. Maybe that's part of the Sicilian recipe.
It might be. I've got some very distinct taste notes regarding these because I've had a head
Can
start
you
on
whiz through them then? Because I want to eat this.
No. Well, that's what I want you to do now. So I want you to have a bite and tell me what you think.
Okay.
Tell me what you can
Okay.
taste. Yeah.
Yeah. Because this is now. We must warn people as well that sometimes this is the bit people don't like. You get complaints, don't you, Duncan?
Well, they stopped because I think those who found it offensive actually stopped listening to this podcast after me banging on relentlessly, just going, "It's a podcast and we eat sausages. If you don't like the sound of people eating things, maybe don't listen. You moron."
Yeah.
So,
well, I've got my Croatian beer, which I'll tell you about just before we go. But I'm just going to lean back and eat some of this.
So Rory's got the hot ones. I've got ones which are 2 days old that have been in the fridge.
I'm really surprised.
Yeah.
These are I was expecting to hate these.
Yeah.
Actually.
Wow.
Oh, what is this? What is that coming through? Don't say anything. Wow.
Isn't it?
They're salty,
Yeah.
but not in a bad way.
No.
This is a real surprise. I think you've really, I think you've found something here, Duncan. I really do.
So, the garlic, I think, really comes through. It does for me. But it's also the fennel. A slightly aniseedy thing going on.
Yes.
And then you've got the thyme as well. So the garlic.
Thyme is amazing.
The garlic, the fennel, and the thyme, I think, really makes these sausages. Now, the other thing, excuse me, is, as the actress said to the bishop, I just need to swallow.
That old chestnut.
It's a good. Never
I mean,
tires
it
that
just
gag.
never gets old, does it? I mean,
Well, it's not really a gag; it's just filth. The other thing I've concluded is that I don't think you can say that anymore, can you? The other thing I've concluded is I prefer these cold than hot. So I don't know if there's going to be any left in your fridge later, or whether or not they're going to make up your dinner for later on. But at least let one of them go cold, because it's obviously, if you allow it to effectively rest like you would do a joint of beef or whatever, the juices kind of like move around the sausage a bit more, they congeal, and the taste when it's cold becomes a lot more flavoursome. Cold, they are absolutely bloody delightful.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm going to do then? I've got 2 here, because I always not. I mean, normally I get through the 2.
Yeah.
We did cook up 3 because Lizzie wanted one. She's a massive fan of French sausages. She spent a lot of time in France as a kid, and I think she was intrigued by these. She also likes them. Basically, there's a name for them. The chili French sausages. She's into those. So she's got another warm one of these. What I'm going to do then, Duncan, on your recommendation, this second one, I'm going to let it go cold. Funnily enough, when I did the garden herb ones, which maybe is one we could do on another episode of Poif.
Yeah.
That's the shortened version of Prick with a Fork.
Yeah.
I let that one go cold and took it on a dog walk.
Yeah.
Did the whole, wrap it in foil like you do. It's a tasty little snack. You can put it in your. I mean, Sumner, my beagle, knew it was there the whole time, and she might have got some of it. But this, let's just go back to these sausages here, because the consistency as well. It's got a real crunch on the casing.
Yeah.
And they're quite coarse, which I quite like.
Yeah.
But you can, the black pepper in there is more of a hint,
isn't it?
As you say, the fennel is taking over, but not in a bad way. These are really interesting. I bet if you serve these up at a barbecue, I think even in a soft bun as a hot dog, I think you definitely have people saying to you, "Where on earth did you get these?"
I think so. I think they are an event.
You can just say Sainsbury's.
Yeah, Sainsbury's. I'll get your score on this in a second, but also there's something else that's pretty good with these sausages, I think. Okay, because of the vast selection of ingredients in there, and it's not a new idea of mine. I've seen it written down in recipes in the past, but there are plenty of recipes out there that are loosely titled Italian sausage pasta and stuff like that, right? These are perfect for that. If you want a quick and dirty pasta meal, a supper, right? And you haven't got a load of ingredients, you don't want to buy, fresh herbs and pots of stuff. Buy a packet of these, right?
And chop them up.
Well, I was going to say, you can chop them up, or what I would do, and I have done in the past, so, back of an envelope kind of recipe here, you'd fry off a couple of onions, right? Soften some onions.
Red or white onions?
Both. Doesn't really matter. Then get these sausages, cut into the skin, right? So what you're doing is you're squeezing out from the casing the meat and the herb mixture into your frying pan or whatever, because that is all you need, isn't it? Because what you've got there, you've got the meat that's inside the sausage. You've got your garlic there, you've got your red wine flavouring, you've got your marjoram, your thyme and your fennel, all those great flavours already inside the sausage. So squeeze out and break up all of the stuff that's in the casing, discard the casings, brown off that meat, so make sure the pork and everything is properly cooked. Those little bits, so only take about 90 seconds to 2 minutes if it's a medium heat or whatever. In another pan, you've got your pasta going on that you're boiling. Maybe chop in some tomatoes in with your sausage meat and your onion, or even chuck in some passata or a tin of chopped tomatoes or whatever, and you've got a really quick and dirty kind of Italian sausage pasta meal there, which is probably 20 minutes in the making. It's perfect for that. This is a really versatile banger.
It is, actually, and now that you've said that as well, you could cook these sausages and cut them up with scissors, as in almost like meat, like sort of like cubes, if you like. Yeah. But like that, you could squeeze the ingredients, brown off in a frying pan, toss them into a saucepan with. Now, you said earlier it doesn't matter about white or red onions. That there are people that will be, absolutely ripping their headphones off their ears, saying that's an absolute outrage. How can this man give off about mustard?
Yeah, but I'm talking about
no
time
difference.
poor, right? You want a half decent meal. It doesn't matter if you got red onions or white onions. It's whatever's in the onion box, right? You know, if you wanted to plan it, absolutely. What would you go for? Red onion, would you?
That's mostly what we have in the house, yeah. Mainly because they don't make me cry, and B, because that's mostly what we've got in the house. But I do, in some ways, with cooking, you'll get a bit more kick from your white onion, and you know I mean, I think it's like everything. There's pros and cons of both, really. It's like, I suppose in some ways it'd be like red and white apples. There's
true, very true.
Red and green apples. I mean, you know, there's differences between the two.
So what do you make of these then, Rory? How are we going to rate them? Anything else you want to make comment wise on what you've digested? Yeah,
I really want to say that I'm so glad I haven't gone with my prejudice, because I'll be honest, I would leave these just on the shelf. I would have.
Yeah. When
you sent them through and said, right, Rozza, we're doing these ones, I was like, oh, no. And of course, you know, you don't want to say things amongst friends sometimes, and you think, well, it is for the podcast, I'll take one for the team. And I was a bit like, oh, he's picked European sausages. Grrr. 10 out of 10. 10. 10. 10.
Really?
Can't believe it. Yes, absolutely shocked and really pleasantly surprised. It's a supermarket sausage. Yes, it's in the premium end. At the moment, though, the Nectar card will get you some money off them. I think you'll probably need to go to one of the bigger Sainsbury's, though, rather than the ones on the corner. If you live in a city, you might get one in one of those city high street
I'd be very surprised, because this is...
I think it's the bigger retail park ones, isn't it?
Exactly that.
10, Duncan. And I mean that, for a supermarket sausage... I was really hoping those Tesco
the signature ones we did,
yeah, we're going to be better, because my sister was like, oh, these are lush. No, these are an absolute surprise in the packet. And as you say, some of the points do come from the versatility. I had already made my mind up before you talked about the versatile recipe, but I'll be really honest, and I'm smiling ear to ear, I'm proud of this sausage, because it's made with British meat, and it's Sicilian inspired. But at the same time, I've been longing for a supermarket sausage to hit 10.
I like it. I won't give it a 10, because ultimately it's a supermarket sausage, and I'm a bit of a sausage snob, but I will give it a 9 for most of the reasons you just outlined. Its versatility is fantastic, because I think you're right. If you serve these on a barbecue, when we finally get some warmer temperatures and some sunshine, people go, oh, what's that? That's really nice. Where did you get that from? I think they work really well cold, because it's not just a cold sausage, it's a cold taste explosion. And I would have these cold with some ice cold beer, because I think that works really well. And you've got some nice Croatian beer there. And also, as we both outlined, you know, you could use the sausages minus the casings to create a very quick and dirty Italian sausage pasta dish. So it's versatile, and actually it's bloody tasty, which is good.
Yes. Now, I know you always say fruit shouldn't go with sausage, or shouldn't be in a sausage, hence why the pork and leek just got by your customs with nothing to declare. I also think that these sausages, I'm intrigued now to try them cold, but I can imagine what they're like cold, chopped up, even on cocktail sticks, with maybe even some pineapple or some grapes in the summertime. I think you're going to get people talking if you give them this. And the brilliant answer for me is, where'd you get them? Sainsbury's. And people are going to expect you to go, oh, I picked them up in, you know, La Trieste when I was there in my, you know, sort of like my friend's Italian chalet or something. Actually, La Trieste is actually in mainland Italy, isn't it? I should have picked somewhere in Sicily, but I have never been to Sicily. So
look at you showing off your geography. I like these.
I've never been to Italy either.
I think it's good.
I've never been.
Good.
Never been.
Yeah, it is pleasing to get a supermarket sausage that is kind of like hits the spot, you know.
Yeah, and like that, like you always say on Prick with a Fork, the meat percentage, okay, we like something in the mid to high 80s, because then the rest of it, the other percentage, is other stuff. But what they've done here with the other stuff, 85% pork, they've filled it up with some good other stuff. Now, okay, it has its sulfites and things like that in there because, as you've always said, Duncan, to be in a supermarket,
sausage,
and sometimes nowadays that's even put in black lettering as you peel off the plastic encasement. But rice flour, sea salt, gram flour, black pepper, tapioca starch, marjoram, fennel seeds, garlic, sugar, salt. I think we've even picked most of that out. We ran through the herbs earlier, and I've got to say it. I do have to say it. And sometimes old radio bosses used to say, "What, do you really need to say this on the radio?" Yes, I do. And that's that they've got natural pork casings.
Yes.
This is none of this seaweed rubbish. It just isn't the same.
It's a win. Well, listen, Rory, I think we'll chalk up this one as a success. As always, thank you. And I'll be intrigued later. WhatsApp me later and let me know what it's like when you have it cold. Because I guarantee you, it'll be almost better.
I will do. Before I go, Duncan. O mai amiori piedere e snorkere, taco sam jabielen jete shevintien.
Can I have the bill, please?
No, that's Italian. Actually, sorry, I better do that again. I've just done it in Croatian.
Well, what's it in Croatian?
Well, I'm going to do it in Italian now.
Go on then.
Oh, ambiano, bagni snorkers, sono così immorato di quel porkers.
You just
We've
translated.
got bangers
and
snorkers, and I'm so in love with those porkers.
It's one of the reasons why I love having you on this podcast. Rory McAllister, thank you.
Cheers, Duncan.
Prick with a fork.
Cracking stuff, as you can no doubt tell. We like those. The 6 Sicilian-inspired pork sausages from Sainsbury's as part of their Taste of Difference range, getting, I think, possibly one of the highest scores ever here on Prick with a Fork. Thank you, Rory, as always, and that's pretty much it for this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Just a final plug. If you want to make contact, do send me an email. Love getting emails. If you listen somewhere around the world, or anywhere in the United Kingdom, just say hello, prickfork@gmail.com. Be lovely to just get an email from you. And of course, you find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow us there, give us a decent review, and our YouTube channel, which I've only just set up. If you subscribe to that, it means you automatically get updates if you like listening to this podcast via YouTube. So just hit the subscribe button. It won't cost you a penny. And on social media, find us on Facebook. Just search for Prick Fork. And me, Duncan Barks, I live on X as Duncan Barks and on Instagram as The Duncan Barks. As always, thank you for listening and happy sausage eating.
Oh, we've got bangers and snorkers. I'm so in love with those porkers. Sizzle or fry, that's what I like. As long as it's real, you'll never butcher my pride. I love my blood sausage, whether black or white. I'm like a hot dog in mustard. Since a new way of stuffing I've discovered. Oh, bratwurst is fine, bratwurst delights. Cumberland rocks with an onion side. Salami, boudin, Savoy, I'm a pig hog high. Oh yeah, la la la. As long as it's in a skin